Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He is Christian. I am Ben, and it is all brought to you by Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code Braves. Get your 10% off and get the coffee shipped directly to your door. Christian, this Braves team, woe is me, seems to be the theme of fans. Got to be honest with you, looks like the team's kind of wearing that moniker as well. Now, they did get a win to end the last series to go out on a high note before starting a new series. However, after losing 5 in a row, this team just seems to be kind of in the dumps. And I think a lot of fans are starting to give up on them, even though they're still in the wild card race.
Yeah, I think it's the expectations that came at the beginning of the season, Ben. I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of media critics gave the Braves power rankings number 1 or number 2 either over the Los Angeles Dodgers or, just below them,
Mhm.
and they've just not lived up to that. Now, I know on past shows you and Lindsay have talked about how uh, some of the metrics are absolutely there, but
Yeah.
it's just not getting the production that is needed. I think that fans are just maybe tired of hearing that. Maybe they just want to see results, and that's just not happening right now. I agree 100%. I think there is some kind of down in the dumps in the clubhouse, but I do think that there's a good way forward for it.
Is the morale in the clubhouse, does it, I wonder if because again, it's their actions on the field. They don't look like, I know this sounds stupid because they're a bunch of grown men. So you're not supposed to say little like they're having fun, but it just doesn't look like it. I think we're comparing it too much to the last couple of years teams. And the last couple of years teams, I mean, everything from the sword swipe to, all the various things that they've done. And I know they do the together thing now, but now it's just like, yeah, there you go. I'm done. And so, and I know fans try to make a little too much of that, but it does seem like the lack of productivity is affecting them psychologically. I mean, it's got to. You got expectations. I mean, we thought Olsen was going to hit right around 300. We thought Riley was going to hit around 300. We thought Arcia, there may be a chance because last year was kind of his sophomore season, even though it wasn't because he saw some time before that. So we thought Michael Harris II would be around hit 330 the last year. So we thought he'd be around there again. And none of that's coming to fruition. And I wonder if that's affecting them mentally as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, the production on the field. I think a lot of it goes back to who have they've already lost this season. I mean, on opening
Yeah.
day, Sean Murphy was gone for the majority of the season with an oblique injury. They just got him back. He just hit his first home run of the season
Yeah.
just a few days ago. Spencer Strider, obviously no longer with the club due to dealing
Mhm.
with an injury that he's out for the rest of the season. And of course, Ronald Acuna Jr. not with the team. That has to hurt morale when you
Mhm.
have your arguably best pitcher out for the season, your star player who was the MVP, the reigning National League MVP last year, out for the rest of the year. Of course, expectations are going to drop a little bit, and you have to think morale falls that way too. Just a few weeks ago, I think it was actually just about a week and a half ago, if you will, Ben, uh, Charlie Morton talked about after
Mm.
one of his starts in the post game conference, and he said that this team is too good for hope. He was talking about how this team is still very good. It's the same team that he's been seeing for the last 3 years since he's
Mhm.
been with this squad, and he's not wrong. This team is basically the same exact rostered squad they've had for the last 3 seasons, and they've done so well. It's just something isn't clicking with the final performance of this team. Why are they just missing so many balls to the warning track? Yes, we've talked about it. It's probably the
Mhm.
baseballs, but how long can you just blame the baseballs when all 30 other teams are doing the same thing?
Exactly. Yeah. The numbers are down for everybody, but everybody has started making adjustments. And, getting back to the morale factor, I don't think this has to do with morale as much as it has to do. Ball players at this particular level are very regimented. I mean, everything from they've got everything set out for their game day preparations to you've heard former players say, "Hey, this was my routine every day. I did this when I got up in the morning as far as breakfast. I went to the ballpark. I did this. I played this amount of cards with so and so players." And some people call it superstition. Some people call it just habit and regiment and keeping everything together. Well, we're also doing this whole pitching rotation thing where we're throwing somebody in every fifth day or calling somebody up. And I know everybody says, like Lindsay kind of made the point before about getting Freed an extra day. Well, then Freed gets knocked around. So you wonder if that kind of bothered him because that kind of threw him off kilter a little bit because his expectations were to pitch this day. Then all of a sudden they call Waldrop up and he gets pushed back over a day because they had a travel day in between, and then he throws. And so I also wonder if that has something to do with it until they find their fifth guy, or possibly even their fourth guy. Who knows what we're going this Lopez thing. I do wonder if his arm's going to make it all the way through the season as a starter, and if he eventually moves to the pen and maybe that fifth guy slides into the four slot. So I wonder if that has something to do with it as well.
That's a really good point about Lopez. I hope that's not the case because he's absolutely tearing it up for the Braves. He's been
Hmm.
easily the best offseason acquisition for them this season. He's leading the National League in ERA now after his last start. Him moving to the bullpen, obviously, it would probably be a long relief if they did that. I'm gonna predict that that doesn't happen because I think they
Hmm.
absolutely just need him in the rotation. Maybe he has some not some lengthiest starts, if you
Yeah.
will, but I don't think that's going to. I hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
But with Freed in his rotation spot, that's an excellent point as well. I wonder if that did affect him. I think that I don't know. I don't know if that is the case. I do. I might be in the minority, but I do like seeing the youngsters come up and getting their chances because I think they're going to
Hmm.
be needed towards the end of the season if they do be able to make that postseason run. Because you have some older guys like Charlie Morton, like Chris Sale,
Hmm.
that have had some injury, and it's just a possibility that did happen. And then you mentioned Lopez possibly on an innings limit, or at least not being able to hold up his arm moving into the end of the season. So I do like seeing the youngsters come up. Yes, there's going to be some struggles,
Hmm.
and with the struggles of the offense, it just adds one pile on top of the other of a morale sandwich, if you will. And those
Yeah.
morale sandwiches is two pieces of bread and a can of soup. It's just not really working well right now, Ben.
Yeah, I will say this, and I'm with you on the youngsters. I know that we see fans complain, whether it be online, whether it be social media, or whatever it may be, about the guys coming up. If y'all fully expect, then I'm talking to you fans, for a guy to come from either Double A or Triple A and start shutting down major league hitters your very first time out. Okay, you really, first off, I think the expectations were a little too high on this Braves team to start with. I mean, even I picked them to win over 100 games, and that ain't going to happen. And so, just because of the first half of the season, now there's still a second half of the season, and if they can get those young guys to getting used to throwing at the majors, to getting used to listening to their catcher or calling their own game, and I think if they can just limp through, but they're going to need help. They got to have the offense help them out, because if a guy goes out there and gives 3 runs, this is a team that started the year averaging 6 runs a game. So you should be able to give up 3 runs. I mean, that's the whole reason they took a shot on Sale and on Lopez, because they thought, okay, even if they wear down a little bit and give up 3 or 4 runs, we should out offense the other team, and we should be able to get those guys wins in the column. And so I think that's the expectations too of management, to do that for these young guys, and the bats just aren't coming around.
It's a long season. It's a long season, and having those young arms get some of that help now before they can make a
Mhm.
decision on what they're going to do before the July 30th trade deadline, I think is crucial for it. And you're right about those offensive bats, Ben. There's been a huge issue with offensive production and what's going on with the team so far. If you look at the team, let's just talk about Marcelo Zuna, for
Yep.
example. He's been the one that's only been showing the most production uh, with the bat, if you will.
Mhm.
He is the only player that is on pace to hit more home runs than he did last year. He's on pace to hit 44 home runs on the year. He only hit 40 home runs last season. Every other player on the Brave squad, we can go through them, are off pace by a lot. Austin Riley hit 37 last year. Yes, he dealt with some injury, but he's only on pace to hit 8. That's a lot of issues, and that goes back to that hard hit thing. Yes,
Mhm.
the advanced metrics are doing everything, saying everything is right, and in some cases even better than last season, Ben. But something just isn't clicking. I don't know if it's the clubhouse. I don't know if it's the baseballs. I don't know how far you can blame each side, but there's definitely an issue going on.
Well, and it's funny you bring out about the Austin Riley thing, because he's one of the ones that I think adjustments have got to be made. So here, you said it. So what if the balls are soft? So what if there's extra spin on them, which is causing them to hold up a little bit and not carry quite as far because of the softness? And so, everybody else playing with those same balls as well, and other teams have made it. The LA has made adjustments, but I we're talking before we came on here. I'm totally okay with Ozuna still swinging for the fences. I'm even okay with Olson swinging for the fences. But the Rileys of the world, who clearly on pace to hit 8 total home runs. He needs to make some adjustments. And if he is going to hit the ball hard, either start getting on top of the ball a little bit more instead of trying to get under it and get it over the fence, or, start going he said, Chipper said it best, whenever you start slumping, whenever you're not hitting the ball well, start trying to go the other way because it's just going to make you see the ball better. And maybe that's an adjustment he makes, but none of them are doing. Even Ozzy, still, that first swing, he's taking a hack to try to park it, 345, 350 over the right center field wall. And then he shortens up a little bit later on. But how many fly balls to right field have we seen out of Ozzy because of that first swing hack before it's almost like you hope he swings and misses because then he shortens up and tries to put the ball in play.
Those are the two people that I think need the most adjustments to do that as well. Maybe you try to push more towards line drives, try to work on getting their angle a little bit down so they're not pushing it up for high fly balls. They still have those hard hits if they can. It's going to take some adjustments, but Austin Riley and Ozzy Albies, I talked about Austin Riley having issues with his pace. Albies is right there as well. He had 33 last year. He's only on pace to hit 10.
Yeah. So numbers are clearly down. Hey, want to thank the folks at Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code Braves, get your 10% off. They're not going to roast those beans until you make your order, and they're going to ship them right to your door. Again, plainscoffee.com. Flavored coffee. Also have teas if you're not a coffee fan. Promo code Braves, get your 10% off. Let's walk through the lineup a little bit because I think there's a couple of guys that are disappointment to me. And I must say, I think that Duvall, if he's going to be playing every day, I think, goes back to that word expectations. I think he's not doing what I kind of hoped and expected he would do. I know Charlie Martin said don't live off of hope, but I was hoping he would be a little bit better because as Lindsay mentioned in the last pod, let's go back to the World Series team when Acuna wasn't playing. Look at the outfielders that were out there, Heredia
Right.
of all people, who were playing in the outfield. I mean, Duvall and Kelnick are much better outfielders than what was, and Ian Harris the second. I mean, he's to me even better than last year. So what has got to be done to get these guys to come around as well? Because Kelnick, I kind of give a little bit of a pass on. He's adjusting to the National League, adjusting to new pitchers, adjusting to new ballparks. I mean, he was, with him being in the American League and being with Seattle, who knows how he's going to adjust to this heat when it rolls around. Even he has said that.
Right.
He's hoping adjustment-wise the ball's going to fly. Keep in mind, he had the furthest hit home run last year in all of Major League Baseball when he played for Seattle. So once he starts getting some warm weather, who knows if he may warm up a little bit, no pun intended. But Duvall and Kelnick are two guys that I've kind of expected a little bit more out of as well.
Yeah, and they started the season off as a pretty solid platoon. I
Mm-hmm.
thought they turned out to be a very solid platoon, and that might be a hard adjustment going from a platoon knowing that you might not play every day, and you go back to routines you talked about at the beginning of this episode, to now all of a sudden, hey, your guys are going to be the corner outfielders. You guys are going to go every day. That's just how it's going. No matter what, if there's a righty or a lefty on the mound, and that's going to take some adjustment. I think a little more for Kelnick other than Duvall, just because on how many years Duvall's played in the league and how many times he's been traded. I think he has a lot of flexibility with his routine, if you will. But with Duvall, he heated up pretty well last season as well. And then we saw him what he did in 2021 after being traded over to Atlanta. So I think you just need to be a little patient with him. I don't know how much patience you can have because, the deadline's coming close and you're already 9 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies for the National League East title. But I do think you need to have a little bit more patience with him. But they're going to bring in one more outfielder at least.
Yeah.
And whether that is somebody that can take an everyday corner infield spot and then move both those guys back to a platoon role, or to bring somebody in to just rotate out into a 4-man rotation in the outfield, I guess it'd be really 3. Michael Harris is probably going to hold up that center field by himself, unless they go out for another center fielder, which I don't see happening. I think they're going to go for a power bat corner outfielder type of player. Regardless of the fact, I think, hey, you have 41 games. Excuse me. You have 41 games heading into this weekend before the July 30th trade deadline. That's a lot of baseball still. 41 games. So you have to have a little bit of patience with what you have, because you're probably not going to make a trade until about 30 or 35 games in from where you're at right now.
41 games, not just that. It's going to come against some American League teams over the next couple of weeks. And then finally, they've faced St. Louis, and then got Pittsburgh just around the corner before San Francisco heads into town. And then you've got 3 games against Philly before the All-Star break, along with Arizona. You end going into the All-Star break against 3 very good teams, in my opinion, with Philadelphia, Arizona, and San Diego. And I mean, San Francisco is nobody to shake a stick at as well. So it's not like the season's going to get easier for them as they head to the break. However, with those 3 against the Phillies are finally playing some people that are above 500 teams. They weren't doing so before. I think there's an opportunity to cut into that lead. Not that I'm expecting a Philly sweep whenever we finally do take on the Phillies. But I would like to see Atlanta. I think that'd be a huge confidence booster if they kind of stuck it to the Phillies a little bit whenever that series rolls around. And if they can get some series wins out of San Francisco and San Diego before, and Arizona heading into the All-Star break, where also the Phillies are facing some of those same teams that are above 500. So maybe they help Atlanta a little bit. I do see some positives. Is it as bad as fans think it is, Christian?
No, no, I don't think it is. And I think you have to go back to those advanced metrics, Ben. I think
Yeah.
you do, because they're still doing everything that they have done the last 3 seasons. They're just getting some bad luck with the new changes of the baseball, but they do have to make adjustments. I
Mhm.
think they do have to make adjustments. If they don't make adjustments, then it is going to be as bad as they say it is. There's 2.5 weeks until the Braves play the Phillies, as you mentioned. If they can find a way to get a game or 2, maybe even 3 games back on them, come in within 5 or 6 games behind them heading into July 4th weekend to play the Phillies. That is going to be an absolutely huge series on the holiday weekend. Could be what decides Alex Anthopoulos to make what decision moving forward on July 30th for the trade deadline. They only play 7 divisional games before they have to make a trade or
Yeah.
decide to make a trade or not. So they haven't done so well in the division this year, only 12-11 against NL East opponents. That's going to have to change if they want to make a run in the postseason this year.
They don't need him because he's a first baseman, but we're also getting to that point in the year where some guys are getting released. Abreu released from the Astros. They owe him $30 million. That's one of those that I think Anthopoulos will look for somebody like an outfielder like that to happen, and somebody that will click. And the reason being is because Atlanta doesn't have the cap space. They don't have the money in order to go out and pay somebody. So they would love to see somebody get released or get DFA'd or something, and sweep in and grab them on the cheap without even having to give up a lot of assets. Because it's still, we talked about those young pitchers and those young arms earlier in the pod. That seems to be what everybody points at when Alex Anthopoulos starts talking to people and going, "Hey, let's make a deal." They're like, "Well, give me some of those arms." So that ought to let people know that are frustrated with the young arms right now, Smith Shawver, whether it be Waldrop, whatever it may be, or whoever it may be. Just know that they are a hot commodity on the trade. That's the first thing everybody asks when they reach out to the Braves. Are you willing to part with these guys? And then they're wanting to sit down and make a deal. And congrats to AA. Good for him, as he's not buying it. He's like, no, that's the future of this program. Freed's going to be a free agent. Morton's going to be done at the end of the year. Who knows if it's retirement or he just signs a cheap 1-year deal to stay with the Braves just to see if he can plug along another year or something of that nature. So pitching could be a big thing. And if those guys come around in the second half, Atlanta's got, I think they have a bright future. I don't know if that, you know, division title is out there. Who knows with the Phillies? Also, we keep saying it over and over. You've seen what the wild card has done the last few years. Who knows if you want to be the wild card or not? I know that nobody ever wants to be in second place, but it seems to be advantageous, contrary to some of the old heads in baseball where they might not like it. It seems to be one of the things that seems to be a positive as far as the new generation of baseball.
With that new structure of the playoffs, being a wild card isn't that big of a deal. If you're not the first team in all of the National League, which is not going to happen, being a wild card team doesn't seem like a big deal. Look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, what they did last season.
Mhm.
They were the wild card team. They took it all the way to the World Series. Just lost to the Texas Rangers. Might I mention was a wild card team. So I don't think that's a big problem. Getting to the dance is going to be the big deal this year. I think the Braves still have a great shot. Are they going to win their 6th straight NL East title, Ben? That one's up in the air. But the scenario about Abreu, real quick,
Mm.
that's a perfect scenario. Not him because he's struggling, he's an older
Yeah.
guy, but the scenario is perfect. You get a guy on a huge contract, he gets DFA'd and released. you can sign him for a veteran minimum deal, perfect for the Braves. You'll see if something like that happens before July 30th.
It's all been brought to you by Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code Braves, get your 10% off. Check out bravestoday.com. Christian, a big writer there. He'll have some stuff up. Lindsay's always got stuff up, although I think he's going to be out of pocket for a little bit, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be plugging away his computer because he's got those nerdy numbers that everybody loves to read about from time to time. So we'll have those up as well. Christian, as always, I greatly appreciate it, my man.
Thank you, guys.